The throne hall of the Zareth Empire was vast and cold, built from black stone and glowing veins of gold. Alien nobles stood in silence, their faces hidden behind jeweled masks. In the center of the hall, under the weight of thousands of judging eyes, stood a lone human commander, Elias Kane. His hands were bound in glowing restraints. His body carried bruises from the long journey as a captive, but his eyes still burned with quiet fire. He had been brought here as a trophy, a symbol of humanity's defeat. On the throne sat High Empress Valara, ruler of the Zareth, her presence both beautiful and terrifying. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver. Her long, graceful limbs moved. With unnatural elegance, 4 silver crowns floated above her head, spinning slowly like moons in orbit. Her voice was soft, but it cut through the hall like a blade. "Kiss my feet, human," she commanded. Her tone was not a request. It was an order, an insult, and a test. The nobles around the hall chuckled in amusement, yet they had seen this before. Conquered species always fell to their knees. Some cried. Some begged. Others trembled in silence, but all obeyed. None dared to defy the Empress. Valara leaned forward, her golden eyes glinting with cruel delight. "Do it," she said again, her lips curling into a mocking smile. "Kiss my feet, and I might let your people live. Show the galaxy that humans know their place beneath the Zarath." Elias said nothing. He simply stood there. His breaths were slow. His eyes were calm but steady, staring straight into hers. There was no fear in them, no shame, only defiance. A soft whisper rippled through the crowd. Some Zareth nobles tilted their heads in surprise. This was unusual. Normally the human spirit broke quickly. Valara narrowed her eyes. "Do you hesitate?" she asked softly, her voice now colder. "Or do you wish to see your homeworld burn? Obey me, and your people will be spared." Still, he did not move. Then, slowly, Elias lowered himself to one knee. For a brief moment, the nobles smirked. They thought they had won. They thought the proud human had finally understood his place. Valara's cruel smile widened. She extended her foot toward him. It was long and delicate, covered in a thin layer of shimmering gold dust. The hall fell silent. Everyone leaned closer, eager to watch the moment of humiliation. Elias looked at the foot for a moment, and then he spat on it. The sound of his spit hitting the golden floor was louder than thunder in that quiet hall. Gasps erupted. Alien nobles recoiled in shock. No one had ever dared such an insult. Elias rose back to his full height, his face calm. His voice was low but firm. "A human kneels to no tyrant. You want our submission? You'll have to. Burn the galaxy to ash to get it." Valara froze. Her golden eyes turned cold as a dead star. Slowly, she withdrew her foot. The air grew heavy, as if the entire hall was holding its breath. The Empress stood. She towered over everyone, her shadow stretching across the floor. When she spoke, her words were like a blade dipped in poison. "Then you have chosen death," she whispered. "Not just for yourself, but for your entire species." Elias didn't flinch. He simply met her gaze and said, with quiet steel, "Then let it be war." The hall erupted in chaos. Guards moved to seize him. Nobles shouted. And in that single, defiant moment, Elias Kane had set fire to the fate of 2 entire civilizations. The hall fell into stunned silence after Elias's words. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The Empress stood still, her long silver hair drifting like smoke. Her golden eyes glowed faintly, and the air around her began to hum with quiet, dangerous power. The Zareth nobles stepped back. They could feel that Valara was furious, not the loud kind of fury, but the cold, silent rage that promised death. Her voice came softly, but every syllable carried the weight of a storm. "Take him," she whispered. Dozens of armored guards rushed forward. They were twice the height of a human, their armor alive with shifting colors. They moved like predators, closing in on prey, but Elias did not resist. He stood still as their claws gripped his arms. Valara slowly descended from her throne. Her feet touched the floor with a soft echo. Every step she took was calm, but the tension in the hall grew heavier with each moment. She stopped just a few steps away from Elias. "You dare spit on me," she said softly. Her voice was almost gentle, but there was a sharpness beneath it. "You dare defy the will of the Zareth Empire." Elias stared back at her. His body was bruised, his wrists bleeding from the restraints, but his gaze didn't waver. "I dare to remain human," he said quietly. A flicker of surprise crossed her alien face. For the first time in centuries, someone had spoken to her without fear. But that flicker was gone in an instant, replaced by cold hatred. Valara lifted her hand. Energy gathered in her palm, glowing like molten gold. The hall trembled as if the very walls feared her power. She could kill him right there, erase his existence in a single breath. But she didn't know. Death was too merciful. "Do you have a homeworld?" she asked suddenly, tilting her head. Elias hesitated for only a moment. "Earth," Valara smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was sharp, like broken glass. "Then I will burn it. I will make your sky bleed. I'll make your oceans boil. I will make your children scream, and I will leave you alive. Right, long enough to watch." Her words cut deeper than any blade. The nobles cheered softly, their voices like whispers of poison. Some laughed. Others hissed in delight. They loved seeing their empress in her wrath. Valara turned to her generals, who were standing at the edges of the hall. "Prepare the fleet," she commanded. Earth is no longer a world. It is a message. A deep rumble echoed as the order spread. Across the empire, warships would awaken, their engines roaring like beasts ready to hunt. Elias felt his chest tighten. He thought of his people, his family, the quiet streets of his city, the blue sky, the soft sound of rain. Soon, all of it. Could be Ashdod, but he didn't look away. He wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing him break. "I think fear will win you this war," he said slowly. "But you don't understand humans. You don't understand what happens when we're pushed to the edge." Valara's smile widened. "Then show me," she said softly. "Show me what humans are." The guards dragged Elias away, their claws digging into his arms. As he was pulled through the dark halls of the Zareth Palace, he could hear the distant sound of the Empire, preparing for war. And in that moment, Elias made a silent vow. If the galaxy was going to burn, he would not let humanity go quietly. He would find a way to fight back, even if it cost him everything. Far from the cold halls of the Zareth Empire, Earth still slept under its soft blue skies, but the peace was fragile. Rumors of alien attacks were spreading. Broken fleets limped back from distant colonies, carrying wounded soldiers and dark stories. Humanity knew the Zareth Empire was coming, but no one understood how close the danger truly was. On the surface, people tried to live their lives. Children went to school. Markets stayed open. But behind the scenes, every government was panicking. Defense councils met in secret. Old nations that once fought each other now shared resources. Humanity was preparing for the inevitable. In an underground base, beneath the ruins of an old city, a group of resistance leaders gathered. The room was dim, filled with the hum of holographic maps showing alien fleet movements. General Mara Voss, a stern woman with steel-gray hair, stood at the center. Her voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed her worry. "Commander Elias Kane has been captured," she said quietly. A silence fell over the room. He was last seen on the front line of Vega Outpost before it fell. Zareth ships took him alive. "We don't know where he is now." Some of the officers lowered their heads. Elias was more than a soldier, he was a symbol. He had led humanity's first real victory against the Zareth years ago, saving thousands. To lose him now felt like losing hope itself, but Mara straightened. Her voice grew sharper. "He's not dead. Not yet. And if I know Elias, he hasn't given up, which means neither do we." At that moment, the lights flickered. A young technician rushed into the room, pale-faced. "General, we've intercepted a transmission from deep space. It's from the Zareth fleet." Play it, Mara ordered, the room filled with a cold, echoing voice. It was Empress Valara herself, people of Earth. Her voice purred through the speakers. Your commander has insulted the Zareth Empire. For as Defiance, your world will suffer. Prepare your skies. Prepare your hearts. The fire is coming. The transmission ended. No one spoke for a long moment. The only sound was the faint hum of the holomaps. Then, finally, someone whispered what they were all thinking. It's war. Mara turned to face them all. Her jaw tightened, but her eyes burned with determination. Then we fight, she said. We've survived worse. We will survive this. Meanwhile, aboard the Zareth flagship, Elias sat in a dim cell. The walls pulsed faintly with alien energy, almost alive. Chains of glowing metal bound his wrists and ankles. He was weak, but not broken. He could hear the distant engines of the fleet preparing to move. He knew where they were going. Earth. For hours, he stared at the floor, lost in thought. Memories of his home flickered through his mind, the smell of rain, the warmth of sunlight on his skin, the laughter of his sister. Would all of it vanish? Under Zareth fire. A soft hiss came from the corner of the cell. Elias looked up. In the shadows stood a figure tall and thin, with shimmering blue skin. It was not a Zareth soldier. It was someone else. The figure stepped closer and spoke in a quiet voice. You don't know me? But I'm not your enemy. There are those among the Zareth who do not agree with the Empress. If you want to save your world, you will need help. Elias blinked, unsure if he was hallucinating. Who are you? The figure glanced nervously toward the hallway. A friend. And I'm here to get you out before it's too late. For the first time since his capture, Elias felt a spark of hope. Back on Earth, fleets of old human warships began to rise into orbit. Soldiers prepared for the greatest battle in human history. Civilians dug into shelters, unsure if they would live to see another day. The Zareth were coming, but humanity was not going to kneel. The cell was silent except for the faint hum of alien machinery. Elias stared at the figure who had stepped from the shadows. The stranger's blue skin shimmered softly in the dim light, and their eyes glowed with an unusual gentleness something. Rare among the Zareth, you're not one of them, are you? Elias whispered. The figure shook their heads slowly. I am Zareth. Yes, but I do not serve Valara blindly. There are those who believe this war is wrong, who believe the Empire has lost its soul. Elias studied the stranger. He wanted to trust them, but he couldn't afford to be fooled. Why help me? If she finds out, she'll kill you. The figure's voice trembled slightly, but their resolve was clear. Because your defiance woke something. The Empress has ruled for centuries without question. No one dared speak against her. But you. You showed that fear can be broken. If humanity falls, the last spark of hope in this galaxy will die with it. Ilias's jaw tightened. So what's your plan? The stranger stepped closer and placed a small device against his chains. A soft hiss filled the air, and the glowing restraints flickered before releasing their grip. Ilias felt blood rush back into his wrists, leaving a dull ache. I can get you to a shuttle, the stranger said. It's not much, but it can get you away from the fleet. You need to warn your people. Valara's warships are already moving toward Earth. Elias stood slowly, his body stiff from days of captivity. His mind raced. If he could escape, maybe there was still time to help his people prepare. They slipped quietly into the corridor. The halls of the Zareth flagship were massive, carved from black crystal that seemed to pulse faintly like a heartbeat. The air was cold and heavy, and distant echoes of marching guards filled the silence. The stranger moved with precision, guiding Elias through hidden passages. The Empress is in the throne chamber, they whispered. Most of the guards are stationed there. We won't have long before they notice you're gone. As they turned a corner, 2 Zareth soldiers appeared, their tall frames blocking the path. Their armor shimmered like liquid metal, their weapons crackled with deadly energy. Stay behind me, the stranger hissed. They moved faster than Elias could follow. In a blur of motion, the stranger struck one soldier in the throat and swept the other's legs. A soft, sharp sound, and both guards lay motionless on the floor. Elias stared. "You're good at this?" Stranger didn't answer. They simply grabbed his arm. "We must hurry." Finally reached a small hangar bay. Sleek, alien ships rested in silence, their wings folded like sleeping birds. A small scout shuttle was already prepared, its engines humming softly. "This will take you far enough from the fleet to contact your people," the stranger said. "Once you're free, tell them what's coming." Elias hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll stay. If I leave, Valara will know there are traitors among her court. There are still others like me. You must remain hidden. For now." Before Elias could respond, alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the hangar. Cold, mechanical voice echoed through the halls. "Prisoner has escaped. Secure all sectors." The stranger's eyes widened. "Go, now." Elias sprinted toward the shuttle. He jumped inside and powered it up, the controls strangely intuitive despite their alien design. The engines roared to life. Through the cockpit window, he saw the stranger fighting off more guards, moving like a blur of light and shadow. For a brief moment, their eyes met. There was no fear in them, only determination. The hangar doors began to close. Elias gritted his teeth and pushed the shuttle forward. It slipped through the narrowing gap just before the doors sealed shut. And then, he was free. The vast darkness of space opened before him. Behind him, the massive Zareth flagship loomed like a predator in the void. Ahead of him, the stars stretched endlessly. And somewhere among them was Earth. Elias set a course. His hands trembled slightly, but his eyes were steady. Valara was coming. Humanity had little time, but they would not face the darkness unprepared. Not if he could help it. Back on Earth. The first signs of the invasion were appearing, strange signals in the skies, faint distortions in orbit. The world was holding its breath, unaware of how close the fire truly was. But soon they would know, and they would fight. The skies over Earth were calm, but the silence felt heavy. Far above the blue planet, strange signals flickered, disturbances that only the military satellites could detect. Most civilians still went about their lives, unaware of the storm that was coming. Deep underground, in the Global Defense Command, alarms had already begun to sound. Rows of holographic displays showed incoming readings, gravitational spikes, energy waves, and faint traces of alien warships moving closer. General Mara Voss stood at the center of the command room. Her face was calm, but her hands gripped the table tightly. She knew what those readings meant. The Zareth fleet was approaching. "Are you certain?" an officer asked, his voice shaking. Mara nodded. "Yes, they're moving in formation. This is not a patrol. This is an invasion fleet." Around her, the officers exchanged nervous glances.
Oh.
No one doubted the strength of the Zareth. Humanity had fought them before and lost. Whole colonies had been erased in hours. But this was different. This was Earth. Their home. Couldn't run. "Activate the Aegis defense grid," Mara ordered. "Get every pilot in the air. I want all orbital cannons charged and ready, and send the signal to every city. It's time they know the truth." Within minutes, emergency broadcasts echoed across the world. Streets filled with the sound of sirens. People gathered around screens, seeing the warning they had always feared. "This is not a drill. Earth is under threat. Seek shelter. Follow emergency commands." Civilians panicked. Some ran to underground shelters. Others stared at the sky, waiting for the first sign of alien ships. But not everyone was afraid. In the ruins of an old industrial city, resistance fighters gathered. They had been training in secret for years, preparing for the day the Zareth would return. Among them was a young pilot named Kale. He stared up at the sky, his fists clenched. "They're coming, aren't they?" he asked. Beside him, an older soldier nodded. "Yes, but this time we're ready." Far out in deep space, Elias Kane pushed his stolen shuttle to its limits. The engines groaned as the tiny craft cut through the void. He had little fuel left, and every second mattered. He sent out a transmission, his voice steady despite the urgency. "This is Commander Elias Kane, broadcasting to all human channels. The Zareth fleet is moving toward Earth. You must prepare. Do not surrender. Do not kneel. Fight." The message repeated again and again, bouncing across the relay network. Somewhere, he hoped, Mara and the Resistance would hear it. As the shuttle neared the edge of Zareth-controlled space, Elias saw a glimmer of hope-human listening posts. He was almost home, but then his sensors flashed red. Shadow fell across. The stars dot a Zareth interceptor. The massive alien fighter loomed behind his tiny shuttle, its weapons charging. Elias gritted his teeth. "Not now," he muttered, gripping the controls. The chase began. Back on Earth, Mara received Ilias's transmission. She closed her eyes briefly, relief flooding her chest. He was alive. And his warning confirmed what she already feared. She turned to her officers. "You heard him? We don't have much time. This is the last stand of humanity. Make it count." Across the world, old rival nations united. Factories worked without rest, building weapons and ships. Soldiers lined up for final training. Ordinary men and women volunteered, knowing they might not return. For the first time in centuries, humanity was not divided. They were one in the sky above. Faint ripples appeared like cracks in glass. The first Zareth ships were arriving. They were beautiful and terrifying black and gold vessels, shaped like blades. Moving with silent grace, people on the ground looked up in awe and fear. The invasion had begun. The night sky over Earth was no longer peaceful. It began with a shimmer, a ripple of light high above the atmosphere. Then, without warning, the darkness tore open. Zareth warships emerged like predators from the void, their black and gold hulls gleaming in the moonlight. They were silent at first, drifting like shadows. Then their engines roared, shaking the very air. Panic spread instantly. Sirens wailed across cities. Families rushed into shelters. Soldiers scrambled to their stations. For many, it was the first time they had seen the enemy with their own eyes. On the rooftop of the Global Defense Command, General Mara Voss watched the sky with cold focus. Beside her, officers gave frantic reports. "They're entering low orbit. Multiple signatures detected, dozens of ships. They're powering weapons." Mara raised her hand. Her voice was steady. "Activate the Aegis grid. Fire at will." Far below the surface, hidden rail cannons and laser arrays awakened. From mountains, deserts, and oceans, beams of pure energy shot into the sky. The first human counterattack had begun. The night lit up with fire. One of the first cities to be hit was New Avalon. Zareth dropships descended, releasing waves of strange alien drones. They moved like liquid metal, tearing through streets with terrifying speed. But the city didn't fall quietly. Human soldiers met them head-on. Plasma rifles roared. Explosions shook the ground. Buildings burned, but still the defenders held the line. Among them was Kale, the young pilot from the Resistance. Climbed into his fighter jet, an old but modified craft built for speed. As he lifted into the smoky sky, he saw the impossible size of the enemy fleet. "Kale, do you copy?" crackled the voice of his squad leader. "Copy," Kale replied. His hands were trembling, but his eyes were locked on the target. "We're going to hit their carriers. Stay close and don't look back." The squadron of human fighters streaked into the sky like silver arrows. They weaved through enemy fire, dodging deadly beams that sliced the clouds. "Target in sight," Kale whispered. He launched his missiles. Two massive alien drones exploded in a flash of blue light. For a brief moment, hope flickered. But the Zareth ships were relentless. A blast of golden energy struck the wing of Kale's jet. The craft spun violently, alarms screaming. He fought the controls, gritting his teeth. "Not yet," he yelled, forcing the jet back into position. High above the chaos, the Zareth flagship watched silently. Inside, Empress Valara stood before a massive viewing window. Her golden eyes glimmered as she saw Earth burning. "Pathetic," she murmured. "They resist, but they will fall. They always fall." A general bowed behind her. "Shall we deploy the Oblivion Lance?" Valara smiled faintly. "Not yet. Let them believe they have a chance. Hope makes the final blow sweeter." Meanwhile, Elias Kane's stolen shuttle finally reached human space. His body ached from exhaustion, but he refused to stop. He opened a channel, his voice raw but determined. "This is Kane. I'm almost there." "Hold on." As the shuttle neared Earth, he could already see the battle. The sky was alive with streaks of fire. Explosions rippled across the surface. From space, it looked like the planet itself was bleeding. His chest tightened. Hughes too. Late to stop the first strike, but maybe not too late to turn the tide. Back on the ground, Mara stood in the command center, surrounded by chaos. Reports came in from all over the world. Shanghai sector holding. London sector down, enemy advancing. North American grid at 40% power. She clenched her fists. "We will not surrender. Fight for every inch. Make them bleed." For it, in the burning streets of New Avalon, Kale's fighter crash-landed. He stumbled out, coughing from smoke, his rifle in hand. Around him, soldiers and civilians stood together, barricading the ruins. Even as the alien drones closed in, even as the sky rained fire, humanity did not kneel. They fought. But high above, the Zareth fleet prepared its next move. And somewhere, on that flagship, Valara whispered a promise of annihilation. This was only the beginning. The earth burned, but it did not fall. Across the planet, cities were shattered. Smoke rose into the sky, and the ground trembled from endless bombardment. Yet even in the ruins, humans fought on. Soldiers, pilots, and civilians stood together. Refusing to bow, in New Avalon, Kale led a small band of fighters through the rubble. They had no air support left, no reinforcements, and their weapons were running low. But still, they moved carefully, striking alien drones and pulling survivors to safety. "Why are we still fighting?" one soldier asked, his voice tired and broken. Kale looked at the soldier, his own face streaked with dirt and blood. "Because this is our home," he said simply, "and I'd rather die standing than live on my knees." Far above the planet, the Zareth flagship prepared its final strike. Inside the throne chamber, Empress Valara stood before a great weapon, a colossal golden lance of energy aimed at Earth. "Charge the Oblivion Lance," she commanded. "When it fires, this world will be nothing but ash." Her generals obeyed. Power built up within the weapon, filling the ship with a low, ominous hum. Valara closed her eyes. She could almost see the planet crumbling beneath her will. Inevitable. It was always inevitable, or so she believed. Suddenly, a warning cry echoed through the Zareth ship. Unidentified craft approaching. Valara turned sharply. What? Through the viewing window, a small human shuttle darted through the chaos of the battlefield. It was fast, reckless, almost invisible compared to the giant warships around it. But it moved with purpose, heading straight for the flagship. Inside that shuttle, Elias Kane gripped the controls. His eyes burned with determination. He activated the communication systems and broadcast his message to every human frequency. "This is Commander Kane. I'm alive. I'm coming to you. Hold the line." The signal spread like wildfire. Across the planet, soldiers and civilians heard his voice. For a moment, the despair lifted. "He's alive," Mara whispered in the command center. "He's really alive." The defenders of Earth felt their courage return. They rallied. They pushed back harder than before. But Elias wasn't just coming back with hope. He had something more. Hidden in the shuttle was stolen Zareth's technology, smuggled to him by the mysterious rebel who had helped him escape. It was a weapon designed to disrupt the Empire's energy fields. If he could reach the flagship and activate it, the Zareth fleet would be vulnerable for the first time. But the risk was enormous. The shuttle was tiny. The enemy defenses were endless. Elias smiled grimly. "Guess I've never liked easy plans anyway." He accelerated straight toward the flagship. Alien interceptors swarmed to stop him, their golden beams slicing through space. He dodged and weaved through the firestorm. A blast hit the rear of the shuttle, alarms blaring, but he kept moving. Ahead, the massive flagship loomed like a mountain of steel and gold. On the surface, Kale's communicator crackled with canes. Voice again. I'm going for the flagship. If I succeed, their shields will fall. When that happens, hit them with everything you've got. Kale's eyes widened. Understood, Commander. We'll be ready. He turned to his exhausted team. You hear that? This isn't over. We have one last shot. The soldiers straightened. Tired eyes lit up with new fire. High above, Elias reached the flagship's outer hull. He locked the shuttle on a collision. Of course. At the last second, he jumped into an escape pod, clutching the device. The shuttle crashed into the flagship, exploding in a flash of fire. And then silence. For a brief, tense moment, nothing happened. Then the device activated. A shockwave of blue energy rippled across the sky. The golden glow of the Zareth shields flickered and went dark. The mighty fleet was suddenly exposed. On the ground, Mara's eyes widened as she saw the change. Their shields are down, she shouted. Now, hit them now. Across Earth, hidden cannons fired with everything they had left. Human fighters surged upward. Missiles and beams rained into the no-vulnerable alien ships. One by one, the massive Zareth vessels began to fall from the sky. Kale looked up and saw the first alien ship breaking apart in flames. They're retreating. Someone shouted. For the first time, humanity had struck back. On the flagship, Valara watched in silent rage as her fleet faltered. For the first time in centuries, she felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. This out is not over, she whispered. She turned away from the window. Her war was far from finished, but for now, humanity had survived the first strike, and in the ruins of Earth, amidst the fire and smoke, a single truth burned brighter than ever. Humans may bend, humans may bleed, but they do not break.